The last part of today's work is going to start to set us up to do shading, okay? And when we're working with a form, like if we just take some form like the peanut, and let's do a connection. Okay. So the next thing that we want to learn how to do is we want to learn how to kind of make this really nice. And what we're going to work with is we're going to work with a couple of different kinds of shadows, okay? So one shadow that we'll work with is we'll work with a form shadow. And this is always presuming a directional light source, like one source of light. And so when the light source comes down and hits the object, it makes a cross contour perpendicular to the direction of the light source. And so there's a cross contour like this. And everything on the far side, everything on this side of the shadow, everything on that side of the light becomes shadow, and everything on this side of the light becomes light. Now, for drawing one, what I'm interested in is I'm not interested in teaching rendering technique. What I'm interested in is I'm interested in an understanding of shading that would lead to a really graphic representation, okay? So we're going to be pursuing a kind of graphic shadow language. So we'll work with form shadow, we'll work with cast shadow, we'll work with reflected light, we're going to work with what's called occlusion, and a small bit with halftone. Okay. Now, in order to do this nicely, what I want to do is I want to erase this because this is a round object, right? So if I have, at the same time as I have that, if I have a cube and I want to shade a cube, when the light direction comes at this corner, you have a really hard line. Right here, you have this really hard line, and so it shows you the direction of the light. But when we have a soft shape like this, here's what we want to work with. I want to minimize this. I'm leaving it in place so that you can kind of see it, okay? So I want to minimize that. And what I want to do is I want to, along the cross contour, I'm crossing the look at the directionality of my lines. Okay, the directionality, it's like a million little cross contours. And if you go through and watch the videos that I posted, the Alphonse Dunn is a really nice video on achieving beautiful cross-hatching, and one of his first recommendations is to slow down and just take it easy. Okay, so we've separated light from shadow. We've given, you see right here, that is reflected light, okay? And now I want to do this thing where right about close, like a little ways in from the edge of this, I'm going to make a line, I'm going to make a set of hatches that's not at a 90-degree angle. it's at a tiny little angle to the light that I just put down. Okay, so that shows, that's the darkest part of the shadow. That's what we'll call, I'm sorry, I didn't put it in, but that we'll call terminator. Okay, now right here, over here, if this was sitting on the ground and no light could get in there, that would really darken up, and that would be called occlusion. Like right here, there's this darkness that's called occlusion, and you can see the thickening of the line right there becomes, it shows us that like there's zero light that can sneak into that little area there. And like where you have, sometimes like when fingers come together, there's a little line, or if you have, you know, if this, there might be a tiny little bit of occlusion inside of places like that. Okay. And now we'll move off into halftone. So to get to halftone, what you do is you very gently turn outwards. And notice how I'm doing less. Than what I've done in my shadow. Notice also how I start in the shadow and I move outwards from there. How the pencil line starts in the shadow, or the pen line, whatever it is that you're shading with. It starts in the shadow and it moves outward, and it's softening that edge because this form happens to be rounded and softened. And the last piece that we would do, and Photoshop is so bad at this, like the last piece that I would want to do is I would want to really gently fill this space in. And you want to be nice and even. And you don't need to be really dark. Okay. So this creates a difference between light and shade. And now I want to erase this line. Another thing that we want to do is, you see how I'm allowing the line that's kind of closest to the light to stay really light? That's a nice move. That can like make you feel a sense of the form being lit from this side. Like this line is just a little bit lighter over on that side. Okay, the line on this side is a darker line. And this is a slower part of drawing. It's a fun part of drawing, but it's a slower part of drawing. And now if this was, now the next thing that we want to talk about is cast shadow. And the thing that's cool about cast shadow, the way that I want to talk about it, is let's say that we had an object like here. Say we have some sort of post sitting, we'll just use a cylinder for right now, that's sitting right there. And say the light is coming this way. Now it might be casting a shadow over this object, and look at how the cast shadow becomes a cross contour line to show us, it shows us like the volume of this shape. It shows us the turn there, okay? And so I could take this, and what you want to do is you want to pick a value. And for me, because I want for us to be drawing, I want for us to be practicing really graphic drawing for drawing one. We can go more realistic and learn just a few variations of these rules, make for a much more realistic drawing. But this makes for a really nice graphic drawing. And graphic drawings are less forgiving. Graphic drawings really require that you have a little bit of a deeper sense of what you're getting up to. And so then I would do, there might be a form light on this little guy. And so just rendering the halftone. And here I'm going to cross it just to darken just the one little bit. And then this fills in with a gentle tone. And you want this tone to be nice and even, and Photoshop does not make this easy. It's a lot easier to do this with just your pencils. Okay. So this is the idea behind some pretty nice shading. This might be actually like this. And I could put a little cast shadow here. And I'm going to darken that. And I could put a little cast shadow here too. Here I want to do it like this. So it comes off the ground just a little bit, and it shows us this form coming up off the ground, which is kind of nice. Okay? And this is the way that I want for us to do our shading. So I'd like to see you draw this. So draw this. You don't have to draw the cube, but I'd like to see you draw these interlocking shapes and shade them. And from now on, you don't have to like shade every part of your drawings, but from now on, I'd like to see you kind of clean your drawings up just ever so slightly, as just like, starting to add a sense of light. And I included all of these examples from comic books, which I think are really beautiful. And they show, in comic books are really reliant on, in a graphic shading mechanism, they're really reliant on these basic pieces, these basic parts of lighting, okay? So here's the cast shadow. Here's the reflected light. That's reflected light. Here's the occlusion. It's right in there. It's right in there. There's occlusion. Okay? And like right in here, there would be occlusion. Here's the halftone. It's right there. Okay? Here's the terminator. It's right there. Okay? Here's the form shadow. This is form shadow. Okay? And it's graphic. Okay? And yeah, and that's everything. Okay, good luck with that.